The time has finally arrived. Le Mans Ultimate is upon us. The end of early access is nigh. Motorsport Games has provided an early key for version 1.0. What is available in this closed access is limited, and as such, a lot of what I'm going to talk about was done in this black box environment. Your experience will vary when you get this. I did not have the opportunity to try the online preview during this time, so a lot of what I'm going to talk about is also from the early access experience. Even if the early access to the full game was provided beforehand for this video, I say what I think. Later on this year, or starting the next one, I will do an updated review to cover the areas I couldn't talk about properly, so subscribe to the channel. So friends, for those of you who don't know, Le Mans Ultimate is the official WEC sim racing game. You can imagine EA WRC, but for the Le Mans Championship. The price of LMU is competitive right now. There's a 13% discount until August the 5th, and the price will be £28 or 34 euros or $37, rising then to £34, 39 euros or 39 bucks. In terms of content for the base game, it will have the full 2023 season in the base game, plus a few additional GT3 and hypercars from 2024 and 25, including the new AMG LM GT3 and the Aston Martin Valkyrie hypercar coming in the base game at launch. The rest of the content for the 24 and 25, some tracks and a few of the cars will only be available via DLC. The prices of the DLC are actually pretty good value, all things considered in sim racing, but their existence has been a point of contention in the early access program, with myself voicing a lot of criticisms. Anyways, this video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Coach Dave Academy Delta. Coach Dave is an excellent resource for those of you who want to get better at sim racing, including at Le Mans Ultimate. Delta has a treasure trove of telemetry data, setups, AI info, and even coaching to help you out getting better, like they have been helping me out. They cover Le Mans Ultimate, iRacing, Assetto Corsa Competizione, and even GT7. Check the link in the description. So let's start at literally the beginning of the universe. Le Mans Ultimate is a product of Motorsports Games that was for a long while under some very well-deserved flack. The mismanagement of MSG of multiple license has been Le Mans Brothers levels of bad, and they were under very dire straits. Until Stephen Wood came about to save the company, having to make some tough decisions. The WEC license via LMU was a turbulent part of this story as well, with a launch that was atrocious in many ways to say the least. Fortunately, around early this year, the title has been in a good position with lots of improvements, actually bringing the sim forwards, most of the times actually more good than harm was being done. By the late early access stage, the title has actually a good reputation, even if the handling model for the GT3 cars got a somewhat unpopular update. But we will talk about the LMGT3 model later. We are going to start with the user interface. I have long stated that I didn't understand why sim racing user interfaces needed to be obnoxiously complicated. Le Mans Ultimate having the best user interface ends up being ironic because the gubbins underneath end up being R-Factor 2, a title that if it was more complicated than it is, it would be written in Klingon. LMU is a clean experience in the user interface. Everything is easily laid out with easy access, either that be a change of settings somewhere in the menus, accessing some game mode, part of the cars, or the setup menus. The only notable exception for me is a single player event creation, which is still kinda complicated. The latest update has the car setup screen being streamlined to have more quick changes at the forefront, including tires and virtual energy strategy. It's really good to see consistent, good user interface happening in sim racing for a change. Now, the biggest omission at the moment for the launch of Le Mans Ultimate has to be the single player career. Single player is a big deal for a lot of users as a way to experience multiclass or just do whatever they want, and it's just a way to win down without, dealing with the multiplayer part of it. Some people just don't want it. The career mode is absent and expected to release somewhere in 2026 with some advanced features, they say, probably closer to something like EA WRC if the screenshots are anything to go by. It is really unfortunate that the career mode isn't available at launch. As the single player is now, it's run-of-the-mill create your own race/event via whatever settings you want. This allows the user to create a single race or training event or even emulate the full-length race all the way to the 24 hours. These longer events actually have save points when you pit, so if some technical problem happens you can restore a race starting from a previous point, so pretty good. And the single player is of course hugely dependent of the artificial intelligence, and for this I have to say that Le Mans Ultimate AI is actually fantastic. It's one of the best, if not the best AI at the moment for sim racing. They are fast and feel like they have a personality that actually runs risks, defends, goes for the overtake, and sometimes even messes up. Adding the multi-class AI in the past has created for me some Code Brown moments where pants have been soiled and walls have been hugged with said soiled pants. 10 out of 10. The AI work is never finished. Motorsports Games has said that they will give improvements to our robotic overlords. So what's the content then? Well, it's really not that much track-wise. It's 7 in the base game, including Spa and Le Mans, 4 more via DLCs, and in terms of cars, there's the 2023 hypercars, LMP2s, and GTEs. For LMGT3s and later hypercars, there are a few free additions like the mentioned AMG, but also the McLaren, and the DLCs cars like the BMW M4 LMGT3s get an update for the Evo version if you bought that DLC. That means the base game is focused on the 2023 content, like MSG said they would deliver. However, it still has some of the more recent GT3s and hypercars content to allow to jump into most of the driving without needing to spend money on a DLC. Except, of course, unless you want the new tracks like Imola and the Circuit of Americas. Some of the tracks will have multiple layouts. For example, Spa has a 24-hour layout with a lot of pits. If you want to emulate the 24 hours of Spa, you can do it in this game. In the near future, more content with the ELMS will be added as DLC, further expanding the title, and there has been a hint of probably bringing some older content as well, that I hope it actually happens. Let's talk about graphics and performance. Le Mans Ultimate is in essence an old game. R-Factor 2 was launched over a decade ago, and that means that the graphical portion of the game has been uplifted and updated to actually a very good standard. The game looks very pretty in most cases from day to night. An exception would be at deep overcast situations at afternoon, where the colors look a little bit strange with the shaders in some types of paints and some types of reflections. It looks the part without needing a lot of deep changes like you have with the Assetto Corsa and the mods. The content does look amazing, it's very well modeled, excellent cars, excellent tracks and assets. But being an old game, performance-wise, it also means that it's actually decently optimized for most modern equipment and even older ones for higher resolutions. I would like to see some DLSS options or FSR options as well to bring even more frames out, but it's good that it's really not needed, to be fair. Also, I would love to see some sort of post-processing to change the colors like it's available in Assetto Corsa Evo, or maybe even upload some custom LUTs. The biggest downside in performance will be the load time. It's not as bad as R-Factor 2 or iRacing, but nowadays you could be much better than this. For the very important topic of physics, it has been an evolving thing since the start, as these things tend to be. I can say that I like the handling very much. It's one of the better experience right now for hypercars and GT3s. For the launch, the GT3 handling in specific has gotten another update that will make drivers happy, I think. Generally, every car feels and drives differently, relatable with the drivetrain and position of the engine. The best way I can define the handling is dynamic, where the game rewards you if the driver is looking for that little extra edge in speed, but it is unafraid to slap you in the wrist if you are being too naughty with the car. It's good to have a title that makes you unafraid of trying new lines and new things, seeing where you can cut, seeing where you can overspeed, but also if you try that too much, That means you can lose control and go to the wall. The suspension works amazingly. I find this game an absolute joy to drive. For me, the best experience. Now with this new GT3 handling as well. In essence, you don't really need to drive a specific way or feel like the car is being underdriven like you see, for example, in iRacing. So yeah, the GT3 tire model got another bump to fix some of the handling grip gremlins from the last update. MSG wants the handling not to rely too much on slip angles, so they went a bit overboard with the last update, and you had situations where the grip suddenly went acme. This new LMGT3 handling came back a few pegs and should feel more familiar with more control at the edge, but it doesn't seem to be as exploitable as before. On the not so good part of the handling, we have to talk about terrain, and the rain driving is passable. I think iRacing has done a better job in the dynamic aspects of the track. In LMU, there's a dynamic drying line through the wet racing line, but it isn't really that much prevalent. It's still possible to use and abuse the regular line, except where the puddles are. There's really no feel of organic progression or danger for missing the wet line in most times, so it's a bit disappointing. Last point, before moving on to the multiplayer, the force feedback, it is in a good position, I think. I think it's one of the most detailed force feedbacks for the titles of this generation that are currently out there, and gives a good chunk of info of what the car is doing, what the tires are doing, and the conditions of the track. I like it. I think you'll like it as well, or at least most of you. Multiplayer then. This is where I spent most of my time during early access because the game is fun online. There is something essential to talk about multiplayer, which is race control. Before accessing the multiplayer itself, you create a race control profile that will give you access to daily racing, the thing that is, really popular in sim racing nowadays. That's daily racing works with ELO and safety rating. There's a safety rating threshold you need to meet before being able to join certain races, and you'll be matched with people driving the same driver rating close to you. This stuff is free. It's really part of the game. It's what I use. You can even create a free team for endurance racing that allows for driver swaps. However, and this is not needed, if you want to have access to championships, create your own servers, or upload custom liveries, there is a couple of option paid subscriptions. I never really felt the need for paying for it, so I really never got it. As for the racing, well, for me that's been the most fun part of the online experience, and actually Le Mans Ultimate. I think it's really interesting. It's the place I like to race the most. The netcode feels great, the competition at my level feels great, the multiclass feels great, and even these special events they do every so often are fun and great to race on. I've always had populations to race on, except on very strange combinations, and some tracks are also more popular than others, and DLC tracks tend not to be having the biggest number of players. Generally, when I drive, I just choose a race and there's people racing on, and I can have decent battles with people. Of course, that's not meaning that some shenanigans may not happen, but generally it has been clean or rough but still fair racing, and that's really what I wanted, and I'm really vibing with the multiplayer. For the pits, remember there's impacts, you can't really clip through cars, so if you try to do that, you're gonna have a crash. The downside of the multiplayer is that technically the servers during this early access were very hit and miss, with lots of crashes, registrations failing, sometimes outright impossible to join any session like a race session or a practice session, and I expect these issues to continue at launch. The closed access I have to the final release is impossible to test what will be happening here because, I didn't have access to the multiplayer, and even if I did, it wouldn't be possible to test all of these things. Still, the multiplayer was by far the most interesting part, at least for me, of Le Mans Ultimate. As for conclusions, in my opinion, Le Mans Ultimate, while still incomplete, it's a must-buy for those who love endurance racing or sports car racing. It's great to drive, the multiplayer is pretty fun, it runs well, and the price is actually pretty good. Minus points for the lack of a career mode at launch, and the loading times, and also the instability of multiplayer servers that I think it will continue to happen. But let us know what you think below.